Hey guys, it's Sam, and today I'm going to talk about more romance tropes that I hate. So as I continue to read romance, I get exposed to more tropes, or I just discover that tropes that I thought that I liked are like very rarely well done, so I like them less than I thought, or whatever it is. So I'll link the first part of this on the screen. That was like months ago that I did that video, and featured more of the bigger tropes. This is getting slightly more niche, but things that still annoy me, and I have some examples from books that I've read recently for some of these. So the first is a trope that I thought that I liked, and I always go for, and then don't really end up enjoying. And that is city girl moves to small town and meets like gruff rural country boy. That in itself is fine, but what usually happens, what this usually means, is gruff guy is mean to her for a while and then falls for her. And maybe this is just proof that like I will not ever like bully romances, which this is not really bully romance, but anytime that the guy's like a real dick to her at the very beginning about like dumb shit, and is almost like, I don't know, just it tends to be very misogynistic feeling, where it's just like, oh, you're into your oat milk, or oh, you wear makeup, bleh. Just ick. And then he realizes like, oh, actually, she's not like other girls. Like, it just pulls in too many things that I don't like. There's so many books that I have tried to read that people have recommended and I just haven't ended up liking at all. The Simple Wild by, I think, K.A. Tucker has this in like Alaska. These happen a lot in Alaska towns. Wild Love is another one. I'm forgetting the author's name. I read that earlier this year. It's set in the like continental United States. And then Sarah Morgenthaler books are all set in an Alaska town. And I don't like it. Every time I want to like it, I want to like city girl moves to small town because that feels very Hallmark movie. It's very adorable. But when he's mean to her and a big douchebag, I don't like it. Then here's another one that is just not for me. It's not one that I like viscerally actively hate, but I just won't be picking up when I'm seeing it in book descriptions because it's pretty popular. And that is a relationship built mostly through like the phone or letters or texts or something like that. I've read a number of these now and I always am like, oh, it'll be cute, it'll be angsty, it'll be pining. And like, I guess it is, but I can't really connect to it. And maybe that's because in my actual life, like I'm not a big texter and getting to know somebody like through that. Like I want to meet you and see if we have in-person connection. And the same is true for books. I want to see them like connecting in person, flirting, banter, making eyes, you know, a brush of the arm, whatever. That is so much more just angst and pining that I really like. So there's been a number of books that I've read that have this theme that I'm just not into. It was a big thing in The Flat Share by Beth O'Leary because they're communicating just through like almost post-it notes to each other and you don't really see much of their relationship. The Last Goodbye by Fiona Lewis is through the phone mostly, and again, that was almost more women's fiction. A lot of these almost fall more women's fiction because you're not really seeing their relationship. And then this is also a thing in Well Played by Jen DeLuca, which also has a whole catfishing thing because he's catfishing her through just this email correspondence. So I also hate that. That's kind of a given though. The next thing is bet plots. I don't know if I necessarily even have one to talk about, which is interesting because one of my favorite movies from childhood teen years is She's All That, and that has a bet plot. But the thing is that is the archetype. That is it. I love that. Or even Cruel Intentions is a bet plot, and I love that movie. But those are such the archetypes, and now I know what's going to happen in bet plots. And sure, most books end up having like some kind of breakup thing, something being revealed that ends up being the conflict in most romance books. But I always know with the bet plot, the bet's going to be discovered, and then the person that was bet about is like, it was all a bet, and they're like, no, it wasn't. I love you now. It was a bet when it started. I just know like so completely. And romance books are on some levels predictable. They follow certain beats. You know there's always going to be a happily ever after, whatever. But I like to see it go different ways each kind of time and keep me guessing a little bit. And the bet plot, like I always know how it's gonna go. So I'm never interested in the bet plot. Here's one that just, I hate it. Super avoidant personalities when the romance and relationship is obvious. Like, I totally understand some miscommunication, although I hate miscommunication plots. Like, I get it, it happens in real life. People don't know they like each other and whatever. I get that. However, when one character is being so exceedingly obvious that they are head over heels in love for the other one, and the other one's like, no, they don't like me. No, it's all fake. No, and I'm just like, I get that if they were being wishy-washy. Like, if you want to have that plot, make the other character be kind of wishy-washy. I get that. That happens in real life. But if the one character is like doing everything above and beyond. Like, I think in the book that I'm thinking of, Well Matched by Jen DeLuca, I loved Well Met, but the other two, not so much. I think they were even like having sex and she's still like, it's all fake. I'm like, what? So that just is like unnecessary conflict to me. Like, if you're gonna be oblivious, like like a little bit of cute obliviousness, fine. The one that walked the line for me with this was The Love Hypothesis. I liked that one though, because it was kind of like, you're not really sure. He's a little bit like, he's not completely, you know, laying it on thick. Mitch in Well Matched is like head over heels, like he's fixing up her house. Like, it's just, come on. So that one, I've seen that in a couple different books. Well Matched was just the one that was most recent. I hate it. Here's one that, again, I just have discovered is not quite for me, and that's romance books that have supernatural elements that aren't really like paranormal or like urban fantasy. I love a paranormal urban fantasy. These books that I've noticed, it's its own almost like particular subgenre. They tend to kind of be like either historical, alternate reality, or like maybe just that town is kind of supernatural or whatever. But it's almost like eccentric and tongue-in-cheek more than anything else, and that's the part that I just can't get down with. I either need you to take like, it's serious, this is how the world is, yes, or we're a contemporary. Like this in between, like tee-hee, I can't with that. This was in the Wisteria Society for Lady Gentle something. I'm forgetting the names of some of them. I've read a couple of them, like one book where a girl could see like ghosts, but like that was the only supernatural element, and it's mostly otherwise feels almost like a rom-com contemporary romance. It's not for me. Just the writing just tends to be really over the top, and I cannot handle really over the top romance writing. It just grinds my gears. And lastly, this is a thing that I actually mentioned recently on TikTok, but this is like a specific part of this trope. I hate the third act breakup. Is it a trope that I need to go away completely? No, because I get that the third act breakup, which is the breakup right near like the end of the book, the last big conflict, I get that that sometimes happens. It can be sometimes realistic. Like there are things that break couples up, whatever. The fact that it's in nearly every single romance book makes me so mad, because it's just too heavily relied on in the genre, in my opinion, when there's other ways that you can create conflict besides a breakup. And the thing that really gets me with this one that I hate the most, and that is really common and happens almost every time, is the couple will break up after they have sex for the first time. Ugh, and it just makes me so mad, because one, it's just kind of like, it's a really vulnerable thing. Like, yes, it happens, but it's just kind of like one of those, yeah, well, you're gonna have sex and then something big is gonna happen and it's all gonna fall apart. When people are like their most vulnerable, like I just don't like the feelings I get from that, because putting myself in that position with like just having opened up to someone in that way, and then like, so I get why authors do it, because we have this visceral reaction to it, but it just also just feels really like skeezy, and I just don't like it. Like, I would love if characters figured out their shit before they had sex. Usually there's a few conflicts in there, and like that's fine. I wish books would rely a little bit more on external conflicts than internal within the relationship. And the thing that I don't really even like about the messaging of a third act breakup is that a breakup is the only conflict a couple can have, when like, no, you can still have a conflict within a relationship. And that almost gives that idea that like, again, after this third act breakup happens and they get back together, it is happily ever after. And it's like, well, couples still have conflicts within their relationship post something like that, you know? Like, I just wish that that was explored a little bit more. It doesn't need to be gotten rid of completely. It's not a trope that I'm like, oh, I'll never read books like that, because most of them are like that. But more so, I wish that authors would play around more with that. And honestly, almost every time, the last little chunk of a book, a romance book, will knock down a star for me, because they don't do the third act breakup really well. They act really out of character. They act really out of character after this, like after they have sex for the first time, whatever. And I'm just like, oh, so annoying. And it just feels so like shoehorned in. And characters act out of character all the time, and it's just really annoying. So I wish that authors would play around with more things, because the third act breakup is not the essential part of romance. Contrary to a lot of people's opinion, it's actually just a happily ever after. All you need is a happily ever after. So the few times that I have read this, which I can't even pinpoint which books have had this, because I need to start putting that, like I need to start referencing my tropes in my Goodreads reviews, like having shelves and stuff, because that would help me a lot, because a lot of these books just end up bleeding together in my head. But the few times that I have read a no breakup, or like so minimal that it doesn't even last like a chapter, I'm so relieved. Like I'm just like, oh, thank you for doing something different. So I wish romance authors would get away from that. So yeah, that is it for all of the romance tropes that I hate. I'm sure I will add more to this in the future as I continue to spread my wings into different parts of the romance subgenres. So comment below, let me know some of your least favorite romance tropes. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.